I don't believe I've ever seen this before. What I've got for you today is a Terran versus Zerg, where none other than Reynor has decided to pick the Terran pieces. His opponent in this first game of the day, playing with the blue Zerg drones. We're looking inside of the main base of Garitos, who's, I think once upon a time peaked just a little bit over 6k MMR, so a high-ranking European grandmaster. Now, as you may have already noticed, right when the game loaded up, we are on the latest version of the Patches Versus Mod. While patch 5.0.16 is kind of losing a lot of traction, at the very least with the pro gamers, the majority of them don't really enjoy the latest balance patch for StarCraft 2 very much. This particular custom patch has been gaining a ton of traction. More and more tournaments are using this as their patch notes instead. And in case you're unfamiliar, it's changed the entire meta up, right? I mean, there's a lot of new upgrades. There's a lot of new abilities. I mean, we have a 12-worker start. Absolutely ludicrous. I'm excited, though, to see what Reynor is going to be cooking up in this particular mod, as he's starting off with a double Rex. A double Rex. All right, that's a little bit weird. In the meantime, on the other side of the map, hatch into gas into spawning pool. Now, I would like to see a little bit of a Reaper play. Word on the street has it, and with the street, I mean the Discord server, discord.gg/LowkoTV. Word on the Discord server has it that Reapers in this mod are currently a little bit too strong. So the last time I casted this, we weren't on version 3.0. This is the updated version again, and I think they may have added some additional buffs. Just like the last few times, by the way, I do have the Google Docs open on my second monitor. I will be reading through some of the changes as I'm casting this, so things may get a little bit chaotic. But if you want to read along, I'll post a link down below in the description of this video to the Google Docs as well, so you can, well, maybe look at all the changes. But basically, long story short, there's about 40 pages worth of adjustments. And obviously that, yeah, it's going to be quite difficult to summarize. All the interactions are different. But the Reaper has 2 seconds of reduced build time, so that is a reversion for 5.0.16. It also has concussive shells. So the grenade that the Reaper throws now benefits from the same upgrade that the Marauder benefits from. So it's an overall slow, and I guess in this instance it's going to be AoE as well, if I were to make a guess. A little bit hard to say, I'm not really entirely sure. There's also another upgrade called Enhanced Munitions. You can research it in the Barracks Tech Lab for 100 minerals, 100 gas, takes 100 seconds. It grants the Reaper an anti-structure attack and increases the P45 Gauss pistol light damage bonus by 3. So long story short, there's a damage boost for Reapers that you can research in the Tech Lab. Nice little bit of target firing. Oof, almost losing one of the Reapers there. And the idea is, of course, that these units don't really scale past the early game in current StarCraft 2 at all. And that's really the theme with this particular mod. Oh, your Reapers playing with fire here, man. Oh, Reynor gets the kill. Yo, I'm starting to think this Reynor guy is pretty good at StarCraft. Yeah, that was actually really nice. Can we get some of those new upgrades? That'd be kind of sick. Yeah, I think we will. So we have a third barracks coming up, a tech lab as well. Still Reapers on the production tab. This could turn out to be a really quick game. Reynor trying to get the Reaper nerfed in the mod that he has been enjoying, especially over the last couple of weeks. Oh no. Pro gamers are ruining it for themselves. Oh no. Yeah, this is one of those things that when you are designing your own patch, you have your buddies test it, and maybe your buddies are really good at something too, right? But then, well, it turns out there's always someone that's going to be a little bit better. Look at this. That's got to be one of the mine upgrades, right? It is certainly the new research here for the Reaper. So that one is going to make the damage versus light a little bit more apparent, a little bit more powerful, and that's, well, very useful, especially here against, for example, Zerglings. I don't really think you want to be building Reapers into Hydralisks, but really, who knows? It's a little bit difficult to say. All right, so +1 attacks coming up as well. He's still pumping out Reapers, by the way. Obviously, this is quite balanced in my mind because you need to get a tech lab and you need to actually research this for 100 seconds, and it's expensive too. So I'm not really sure exactly how viable this is now that Lings are out with their speed upgrade. Obviously, Reapers are quick, but not quite quick enough to all stay alive. Garitos running into a bunch of issues, but I think he's managed to stabilize quite well. The Reaper grenades, though, still being a nuisance. Yeah, he's trying to get the wraparound. We'll maybe have to settle for some SCV kills instead. Yeah. Honestly, that was really well managed there. Yet again, by the Italian. Well, can I call him the Italian Zerg player? Yeah. The Italian Zerg player who's currently swarming Reapers. How about that? I think you have to go concussive shells as well, right? Obviously, you can pump out Reapers, by the way, with a reactor. We never really see that. But yeah, you can pump out 2 Reapers at a time using the reactor. Now, I'm hoping that this game is not going to quite be wrapped up with this early game pressure, because that's where I've really been liking the games in the mod so far. Usually, whenever players come up with their own balance, there's the concussive grenades upgrade. It's now got a different upgrade icon, mostly because it benefits both the Marauder as well as the Reaper. Anyways, usually this is going to be absolutely broken, right? But what I really like about the Patches mod, since it's been in development for such a long time, is that it's very refined. It's very mature. I haven't really come across anything that I looked at and I thought, this seems too much. Other than maybe the Hydralisk HP bonus. I think the Hydra HP boost, so there's an upgrade that gives Hydras 10 HP. I think that one may be a little bit much. Oh, we have the new Zerg unit coming in. Brenda here upgrading herself for 50 minerals from a regular queen to a swarm queen. She loses the ability to inject, but she's far more powerful in straight up combat. Ooh, they have their grenade throwing ability back now too. Oy, oy, oy. I thought we were mostly getting that actually for the extra damage against light. But this is what they were like back in Wings of Liberty, man. I mean, if we're trying to increase both the variety in the game as well as up the levels of nostalgia, I think the Reapers throwing grenades, at the very least for me, that is instant nostalgia, because that's what they used to do back in 2010. Blizzard took that ability away because it was utterly busted. So in 2010, the first big tournaments for StarCraft 2, the default strategy that Terran players would go for against Zerg was 5-Rex Reaper. 5-Rex Reaper, and all of the barracks needed to have a tech lab on it because that's how you produce the Reaper. At some point, they nerfed the Reaper. It had a movement speed buff. This is crazy. It had a movement speed buff that you could research in the barracks tech lab, but then they nerfed it and moved the movement speed buff for the Reaper to the factory tech lab instead. So players would be forced to tech up. I guess that was the idea from Blizzard, but it's really weird that they thought that it would be a good place to put the Reaper movement speed boost on the factory tech lab. Like, that just feels entirely out of place. Anyhow, at some point they got rid of all of it. This is arguably the most nerfed unit, actually, in the history of StarCraft 2. I don't know. It's actually a little bit difficult to say. There's a bunch of units that have been giga nerfed over the years, but yeah, I think if we had the 2010 edition of the Reaper and we had the micro capabilities of someone like Reynor, yeah, Terran players would never make anything else. Now that Garitos, though, has a bunch of good creep spread, it's going to be difficult for those Reapers to really engage. He's also done an excellent job now building up his economy. So even though he had a rough beginning in this game, the hatchery over here stayed alive. He's up to 70 plus drones right now, and he's apparently going for the full glass cannon approach. No armor upgrades, although we do have a third Evo chamber as well, but no armor upgrades as we're focusing on just missile and melee for the time being. Infestation pit coming up as well. Okay. Siege tanks, by the way, have a bunch of additional upgrades too. So we have one coming in right now. I would imagine if Reynor doubles down, he will be going for some of those additional upgrades as well. The problem with the siege tank in the current version of StarCraft is that it kind of has this, like, for example, later on in the game, you're not really necessarily encouraged to make a lot of tanks anymore because of just the damage not scaling that nicely, or the amount of damage you end up doing to your friendlies. Now, this over here is big. Still plenty of Marines available for Reynor to save it. I thought all the Reapers were gonna die, but you know what? Medivacs can heal them as well. They have that passive, and then they also have the, yeah, the Medivacs topping them off here. Anyways, there's some upgrades that basically make siege tanks scale a little bit better too in the later stages of the game, which I think is quite nice. Command center did get cancelled there for just a moment. Garitos, though, still finding himself 40-ish supply behind. He's making a ludicrous number of links. He is, by the way, getting the armor upgrade now too, so we're once again researching out of 2 tech labs, but the different ones this time around. Fair enough. Looks like Reynor, though, doesn't really want to double down on timing attacks from here, as he's decided to plant command centers. Okay. Now, I would imagine, I'm going to just look this up real quick, because this is, like I said, the latest version of the patch. Yeah, I would imagine, indeed, that command centers are 400 minerals in this particular patch. They have a new animation, by the way, for the siege tank firing. I think it looks absolutely brilliant. Visually, it's far more distinct, and I think it looks better, actually, than the version that Blizzard cooked up. But there is indeed one of the new upgrades on the Siege Tank. So the Siege Tank has 2 of them. So there is the Crucio Dampener. This reduces, and I would imagine that's what this is, because Crucio is the attack of the Siege Tank. This reduces the Siege Tank's friendly fire damage to biological and light units by 75%. Meaning that especially your Marines will not be dying to your own friendly damage output, which is really, really nice. Considering, though, it's biological and light only, it will not really skill that well with Terran mech. But, I mean, it's still a nice upgrade to have. There's also an upgrade that allows them to be picked up by medevacs while sieged a little bit more easily. It's pretty cool, actually. So you can pick it up while sieged up. But then when you have it picked up, it unsieges inside of the medevac. That's the idea. So it allows you to be a little bit more aggressive with siege tanks, but then also be able to snatch them away in a pinch. The problem is, again, that just like the Reaper upgrade, these upgrades are expensive. They take a long time to produce. You can't really just, get these going really early on. It kind of forces you to make a unit and then commit to it, which I personally think is pretty sick. Here we have one of the new upgrades too. This reduces, if I'm not mistaken, the supply cost of the Roach to 1. Meaning that it cuts the amount of supply a Roach takes in half. The problem, of course, with Roaches is that they don't scale very well in the later stages of the game for a very different reason than the Siege Tank. They just take too much supply. An expensive upgrade yet again, but you might be able to flood the map with Roaches a lot more easily. Reynor thinking, though, about going for an attack over here on the left side of the map. In the meantime, we have Banelings together with Zerglings trying their absolute best to blow up a planetary fortress here at the front. He will be able to achieve that job. Reapers coming in for the rescue nearly 12 minutes into the game. And you know what? They're doing just fine. Yeah, I don't think that's bad whatsoever. Reynor is going to continue turtling up, though. I think this is also very much so the Italian here practicing a little bit, right? Experimenting a little bit. What is it truly like to be a Terran player in 2026? Well, you know what? Maybe you can do a really nice job with all of your command centers. What are you going to do against triple Nidus network? I don't even know if the Nidus has been adjusted. No, I hit Ctrl F on the document. Nidus doesn't even show up. What about the word network? No. Wow, this is a 40-page document, but the Nidus network is unadjusted, unless I'm an idiot. Which, yeah, I'm not gonna deny. There's always a chance that I am an idiot. What is this? Ghost Academy. I actually do not recognize that upgrade at all. Renamed to Academy. Okay. There is the nuke red dot scale. That goes from 100% to 200% nuke damage. From 300 to 160 plus 150 versus structures. Nuke cooldown speed, nuke build time. Oh, okay. So the idea is that nukes are basically half as strong. Easier to spot, but also substantially cheaper and quicker to land. So the intention is to make the nuke a more viable zoning tool and form a harassment in the late game in all matchups without making it too strong. I like that. Right? Like, that's cool. I like the sound of that a lot. Rather than things being somewhat cheesy and very, well, in the nuke's case, very hit or miss, making it an actual viable thing is pretty sick. We also have the pressurized glance finishing up for the Zerg. This is an upgrade to the Swarm Host. Swarm Hosts, generally speaking, not a very commonly used unit. Hold up right now. Do we have enough here for the Terran to defend? Yeah, he will. I didn't actually see the Banelings there initially. I wasn't sure if Zerg was going to be able to clean all of that up. Oh my god, triple Nidus on the minimap in the meantime. That's pretty wild. It's going to be very difficult actually to stop. Just a group of Marines aren't really going to get the job done, but look at this. 14 minutes into the game, Reapers swoop in and kill a hatchery. That's wild. In the meantime, we have a big drop over here. Zerg infestation inside of the main base too. I'll get back to the Swarm Host boost here in just a moment. As we have Zerg just attacking left, right, and center. Likewise as well, though, we have the Terran trying to maximize the damage that they can deal with the amount of units that they currently have. Garitos still being able to go Roaches this deep into the game is pretty sick. Normally, Zerg is unable to play this type of unit composition and reinforce this hard because the Roaches just take up too much supply, but not the problem this time around. Looks like maybe the Reapers can even get a second damage. Yeah, a second kill right over here on another hatch. They will indeed get that job done. Medevacs return empty-handed, except for one that still has a handful of Marines inside of it. Looks like the siege tanks now are, well, starting to do some friendly fire as well. We have burrowed banelings on the ramp. I absolutely love it, although a scan here does reveal all of them. And I think ultimately all of these Zerg units are gonna get cleaned up. Both players taking a ridiculous amount of damage. And this is, again, man, I mean, I've been saying this every time that I cast this mod, but this is, again, a banger of a game. We started off with what I thought was gonna be a very quick, well, honestly, a very quick win for Reynor. Those Reapers alone seem to be able to get the job done, but then suddenly we find ourselves in an epic macro game where both players are just dealing a tremendous amount of damage to each other. Reinforcing Zerg units right now, rushing through the map. Garitos actually maybe over-droning a little bit. He lost a lot of workers, but he's gonna go up to like 120? Yeah, that's too much. Even with buffed roaches. I think 120 is a little bit too much, unless we are planning on making a stupid number of spine crawlers and spore crawlers and all the rest of it. The triple nidus will continue, but I think now, yeah, Reynor is going to be able to clean all of this up. Not bad. This over here is an upgrade that allows you to land corrosive balls a little bit quicker with Ravagers. So this is a buff to the Ravager's corrosive ball. Again, something that doesn't scale well into the late game. You can get it later on into the game if you want to, but then obviously it can still be used, right? Whereas right now in the current version of StarCraft, Roach Ravager, it's considered a mid-game unit composition. It doesn't really scale very well. I'm not saying every unit needs to be viable at every stage in the game. I think some of the things probably need to be cut, and some of the things may actually need a little bit additional love. But I really enjoy the concept of what this patch is trying to do. It's really quite fun. Seeing so much variety, I mean, that's the goal of 5.0.16, or what was the original goal of that patch. And instead we end up, yeah, with one that looks mostly the same, with maybe even less variety, if anything. This is all far more interesting, I think, to pretty much any fan of StarCraft. Maybe it's a little bit much, right? I can see the argument that maybe this is all a little bit much, and that it's extremely difficult to actually follow along. Since it's not official either, you don't really know exactly how much staying power it has. So maybe it's only going to be fun for like a month or two. I don't know, but at the very least, I'm enjoying this while it's popular, and I'm going to try and see if I can push the popularity as well. Interestingly enough, by the way, there's now an official ladder for this mod. So you can, like, it's a custom-made one, but you can run a tournament off of this, technically speaking, which is pretty wild. Garitos here moving a Swarm Queen forward. So the Swarm Queen does not have Inject, but it does have this upgrade, and I believe this basically allows the Swarm Queens to emit a little bit of creep around themselves. So I think Brenda over here is moving forward to place down a couple creep tumors here in the middle of nowhere and have like a little pocket of additional creep spread. Again, really cool idea. Jimmy and Mark over there jazzing out for just a moment. They apparently ended up being okay in the end. Now I was going to bring up the Swarm Host change, but we haven't sadly seen any Swarm Hosts. It allows the locusts to attack air units while flying. I don't really know exactly how reasonable that is or how needed something like that is. Do we have any units still over here? Because there is, again... Yeah, we have a little hit squad right over there. There is, again, a triple nidus happening at the front. 122 drones, by the way, has never looked more viable than what we've got right now. Garitos appears to be able to hold on while also mining a stupid number of resources. I think it's honestly too much, but it's pretty interesting. Can we have a look at the income? Yeah. This is what 122 workers, or now 117 workers, gets you, even against a Terran player who's turtled up on a gajillion command centers. Not too bad. This is one of the more experimental changes, I will be honest with you. I think this one might be a bit much. That is the vampiric ability for Ultralisks. So Ultras with this will gain HP back based on the damage that they deal. So right now, StarCraft 2, right, Ultras are mostly just like a tank. This will make them a, well, I guess technically like a one-man army, right? Theoretically, at least. Anyways, big Zergling drop heading on over towards the main base of the Terran player. Another hatchery did end up going down right over there. Reynor not yet really making a move for the bottom left. Usually that's where a lot of this map gets decided. By the way, did Brenda? Yeah, Brenda started emitting creep of her own, man. That's so sick. Triple Nidus inside of the main base with a, well, quintuple Overlord drop? I've never seen something like that. That's so cool. And you know, look, this is really what the patch has introduced. Not just for me, but also for all the players. and why I think a lot of the guys are enjoying practicing on this mod right now, it's made the game fun. I know. It's made the game fun again, which, you know, when discussing all of the Blizzard changes and Blizzard being completely radio silent, ultimately, not really communicating with anybody, not really explaining the changes that they have made, not really making any notes on the patch notes at all, right? Just writing the changes down, but no intention behind it. This right over here, I think, is, yeah, allowing players to then give direct feedback and then for those changes to be implemented as well. I mean, maybe this is ultimately the best way to continue running StarCraft 2 if Blizzard is going to continue as hands-off as they have been over the last couple of years. Anyways, let's see. We have a big circling attack over here. Siege tank somehow, some way. I guess the little blue glow? I saw a blue... Am I crazy? Did I just hallucinate? I'm going to back up. Yeah, the little blue glow probably indicates that they have that siege tank damage suppression, right? If I were to make a guess. They're not dealing as much friendly fire with that particular blue glow underneath the tank. That's pretty cool. I think that's an indicator that the upgrade is researched. Another thing, by the way, that I think modern StarCraft 2 does miss, there's not, like, there's a lot of visuals, right, for a lot of upgrades, but not every upgrade in StarCraft 2 has a visual, even though I do believe they're quite important. Brute Lords added into the mix as well. Dropalords getting into the mix now, too. We've already had a whole lot of them. Brenda, by the way, has started making her own little, I don't know, her own personal toilet on the side of the Terran. Not bad. Reynor actually needs to be careful. This hands, or this game may be slipping out of his hands if he's not, yeah, gonna be paying attention here real soon. Reynor apparently also an enjoyer of the female ghost skin. Huh. I wonder why. Putting up a lot of planetary fortresses. Ooh, look at the Brute Lords. We're gonna have to look at the changes, I think, to the Brute Lords, because these guys look fast. Normally, Brute Lords are really slow. Brute Lord. Am I crazy? Maybe it was just a speed up circle here. It doesn't actually say that they're faster. No, I guess it was just a speed up circle. They're not appearing to be any quicker according to the notes, but the Bruteling strike damage has been increased to a total of 35 versus structures. So normally they deal 20 damage versus structures. This is going to make them stronger against buildings in particular. Not a bad idea. Again, Brute Lord's a little bit of an awkward unit. Okay, the siege tanks here are having a grand old time. Yeah. This is where that friendly fire is pretty sweet, actually. Or the lack thereof on the tanks. Normally, those Marines would have been blasted apart by their own friendlies. In the meantime, though, the Nidus Worms inside of the main base are gonna get sniped down. And it does appear that we are headed to a situation where every base on this map is gonna be taken. Garitos is actually taking this expansion. Normally, this would be considered one of the Terran's bases. Brenda has lost the ability to inject. I'm sorry, Brenda. Yeah, I know you can't do it. Now, what's that? What's this? That looks like a rupture from co-op. Hold up. Baneling Nest. This could be very important, actually. It's called Catalyzed Morphogenesis. That's a big word, or a big combination of words. Reduces the Baneling's morph time by 50% and increases life regeneration on Banelings by 500%. Catalyzed Metamorphosis, or Morphogenesis rather. Morph time decrease allows further for quicker Baneling reinforcements, while the life regen improves the Banelings in niche interactions, such as while baiting storms. Oh, geez. You definitely don't want to be running... okay, that was a misplay. You definitely don't want to be running your Banelings into rocks. Not optimal. And again, that's another one of those changes, though, that I think, yeah, makes a lot of sense. Reduce the morph time of the Baneling in the late game if you want to do a very swarmy approach. That could be really fun. I don't think the energy regen, or the life regen, rather, is that big of a deal. Because, I mean, usually they will die anyways. Now, this is going to be impenetrable now for Overlords, I'm afraid. No, it's not. We disagree. All right. Well, maybe I did speak too soon, but it's rather expensive. I guess you can now kill all of the missile turrets so that when you send your next batch of Overlords, they can also die again after the Terran rebuilds all of the missile turrets. Smart, really, when you think about it. Anyways, now that the base over here has been taken by Reynor, yep, he is in a world of trouble now. This expansion here for Garitos, that is, gonna be able to take care of all of this. Scans in the meantime in the main base reveal all of the pesky links that have been burrowed left, right, and center, although I think the missile turret itself is going to be able to also provide that detection. Zerg now trying to take the base in the far bottom left, but it's going to be very difficult. Just like this one, it's going to be very difficult for Zerg to actually acquire all of it. This is where, in general, actually, the matchup can be quite difficult for Terran going up against Zerg. But Reynor is managing it all very nicely. Ooh, well, that fungal growth was pretty juicy. Those units were extremely dead. There's actually no anti-air over here, so that means that the siege tanks, they're still going to deal maximum amounts of splash damage to their own. That means that the siege tanks may very well have to get out. Ghosts way, yeah, they were on defense duty inside of the main base. They're going to be running on over in this direction. Should be okay. A couple of snipies. A bunch of brootlings. Or a bunch of changelings, rather. Apparently no longer contagious. Normally these units are contagious, but at least, I guess this is the 5.0.15 edition. AKA, the first 15 years of StarCraft 2 edition of the changeling. Okay. Yeah, and I think this is where Garitos is going to struggle. He's rich. He can make any army that he likes. But the problem is, Reynor is richer. Reynor is also making sure that Terran is going to be able to mine half of the map. And that it's pretty much impossible for Zerg to attack any of those bases. So Reynor is playing this slowly, but very intelligently too. He's not rushing any of those outer expansions. Look at the minimap. This guy just... I guess he almost like rapid fired it, right? It's like, brrrt, just get a round of scans down. Anyways, Reynor has not really rushed for any of those outer expansions, but he's taking them at a reasonable pace. Now that his expansions are gonna run out, like his 3rd, 4th, 5th, that's when he's cycling SCVs to the front lines, and he's mostly just been focused on denying those bases of the Zerg, rather than taking the expansions for himself. Cloak getting activated here on the Ghosts. Ooh, careful though, there's fungal growth available. Couple of snipes. -1 Brute Lord. -1 Corruptor. -2 Brute Lords. A lot of drones have also gone down. Reynor with a bit of multitasking. And that's really where he's starting to now pull ahead as well, right? The amount of aggression he's capable of executing all over the map. Yeah, there's no denying that Reynor is just the better player in a game like this. And that's one of the difficult things, right? But I was very interested to see what Garitos was going to cook up. Obviously, this is not game over yet, but I think it's going to be an extreme uphill battle. He's trying his absolute best. Clearly, Garitos has been practicing this mod, though, and he's been putting in the work. And that's one of the really cool things that I like as well whenever you get big changes. It levels the playing field. We've been seeing this in 5.0.16. Players like, for example, Percival doing really well. I've been really impressed by GG Machine. Those were names that we have all heard of, players that we're all familiar with, but maybe players that were not as successful in the past. Now with the latest patch, the official patch in StarCraft 2, they have taken a step forward. Because I guess some of the more established pros have not been able to put in as much work, or maybe they're just not liking it as much. It's leveling the playing field a bit, and it's allowing other people to then catch up. Now what's this? Oh, we have a lot more upgrades coming in. Yeah, I think Reynor is basically just preparing for any sort of composition that he would like to go for. But honestly, I'm not sure that he needs it. Garitos at this point is donating drones so he can replace them with more attacking units. Once upon a time, we had 122 drones mining. But here we go. For the first time in, I think, about 20 minutes, Reynor pulls ahead when it comes to income. Slow and steady wins the race, but this is still scary though. The Zerg army supply count is going to be absolutely massive. You can see it reflected over here with that little sword icon at the bottom of the screen. There's more army currently available for the Zerg player than there is for the Terran. And this is a banger of an army. We have a ton of brutes. No Vikings. No Thors. Really only just ghosts. We're like one fungal growth away, actually, from Garitos being able to push through. But this is exactly where Brute Lords really struggle. Brute Lords are incredibly immobile, right? The entire Zerg army is super fast, but Brute Lords not so much. So a counterattack here with just a good old bio army and some medevacs is generally really strong. Now, obviously, these bases at the bottom of the map don't really matter that much anymore. Positional advantage is nice, but here we go. We did see a fungal going down. Thor production, by the way, now kicking in. That's exactly what Reynor wants to be headed into. Gotta be careful, though. There's Neural Parasite available, too, I'm sure. My god, that's a lot of upgrades. But yeah, we do have Neural Parasite available here for the Zerg. Not a lot of Infestors. Oh, it's only these 3. He's actually lost a lot of Infestors. Reynor's counterattack still going on. Now he did snipe an important structure. That's the Hive gone. Garitos rebuilding a lair, but running into some issues there, too. Ghosts are somehow, some way in the, cutoff path, I guess? Like, they're trying to make sure that the Zerg here can't retreat that easily. I wonder if you should have actually just stuck around. Man, the Broodlord count is insanely high. We never really see 24 Broodlords. It's my impression of a ghost dying. Ghosts, as you probably know, have 2 ways of dying. Either they say, "Never say die," or they shout, I guess they don't learn how to die quietly at ghost school. Or, I guess as they now call it, the Academy. You know what? I think the Academy is a way better name than Ghost Academy. Because there's also some Brood War nostalgia there, right? Anyways. The Thor production is kicking in. Reynor's got a whole load of them. Ooh. And while he doesn't really want to engage too early, look at the amount of damage that those Broods have already taken. This is now a Terran army that is fully specialized into taking down Broodlords. It's really the only thing they're good at. But at this point, Garitos is flat broke. No more minerals, no more gas income either. He is trying his best to stay alive. He just smashed his piggy bank to add on 4 additional Infestors. In the meantime, Reynor is sitting on a golden throne with 12,500 minerals available to him. He's even gonna send in some Liberators now. You know what? I don't really mind it. There's just no anti-air. Okay, the Corruptors are still there. He was not sure if there was any anti-air, and I wasn't either, but... Okay, there were still some Corruptors available. Those Brutes not really achieving all too much. Yeah, I think this is Garitos on his last legs. There's a lot more income still coming through as well here for the Terran player. And while this is still a strong army for the Zerg, I have very, very high doubts that it's going to be able to win the game. Because this is it. We're not going to be able to make another force behind this point. Now, obviously, he doesn't know how much money Reynor has. Likewise, Reynor is going to have to make an educated guess as to how many resources the Zerg player still has. Liberators going in. Liberators trying to get some 6 splash. Honestly, Liberators. Dude, that blue missile, it's got to be some new upgrade. Yep, the anti-air of the Liberator needs to be respected. But there we have it. Reynor gets the job done playing Terran. More? Let's do some more StarCraft. It's time for a best of 3. We're in the bottom right-hand corner. Playing in red. We have Reynor once again. His next opponent playing in blue. We're looking inside of the main base of ByuN. No Reapers, Ok. This is Korean laughing, by the way. This is not ByuN falling asleep. But yeah, I do agree that maybe the Reaper could be a little bit too good in the hands of someone like ByuN. It's the polite thing to do after you've just destroyed somebody opening Reapers. It's the polite thing to make sure that your opponent does not mass them as well. Alright. Let's see what ByuN can cook up. Reynor's been loving this mod, by the way. He even posted recently. I thought this was kind of funny. He apparently posted recently, there was a screenshot of this on Reddit, that he played a live game of StarCraft 2 and then he was reminded of the live patch when he saw that he had 8 starter workers and he insta-quit and he decided to play this game instead. Yeah, okay, fair enough. Apparently Reynor not enjoying the 8 worker start that much. ByuN, by the way, has already been single-handedly the reason why Reapers got nerfed several times in the past. ByuN earned the name of Micro Jackson very well because of it. I mean, when he first came out of the military, he had like, I guess he was like absolutely peaked, you know, he was absolutely shredded, and he had like a jawline that did kind of look like Michael Jackson, admittedly, but he was still absolutely phenomenal at microing Reapers. But yeah, ByuN, since then, he already got the Reaper nerfed. I don't know if he's going to play it again in this particular match. Now, obviously, whenever you hear pro gamers complain, right, you do have to take things with a bit of a grain of salt. By the way, hey, Reynor's opening up triple hatch gasless. Yo, you died to like 4 Reapers here. Okay. Anyways, I think pretty much all the top level pro gamers are big trolls as well. Even the ones that you wouldn't necessarily expect to be trolling, because they always appear to be quite serious. Cero, for example, tends to be a gigantic troll, sprinkling in just the right amount of bait. But for some people, for some reason, people kind of underestimate him for that sort of thing. He's just very Finnish, I suppose. But anyways, that's basically all the pro gamers. They enjoy a bit of trolling from time to time. They enjoy a bit of rage baiting. But honestly, if you ask any of the pros right now, I don't think really any of them enjoy the new patch very much. There's maybe one or two, but really the big problem is that the original intention was to increase variety. And ultimately, now that the dust has settled, there's significantly less variety. Because they sped up everything else as a result of the 8-worker start, things such as, for example, cannon rushes, no longer viable at all. Zerg has a much easier time dealing with cannon rushes. It's the same for early proxy barracks, for example, in this particular matchup. Not really something you can do in the live version of StarCraft at this level. I mean, it happens from time to time, but it's just not as good, right? So, if the goal was to increase variety, I think the patch has not achieved it, and we should probably go back to the drawing board. But what is this? Okay, so we're like maybe a week and a half later than the previous series that I cast. Apparently, we are already refining strategies a little bit more. At the time, Reynor was not really going into the Swarm Queens yet, when I was first casting some of his games, but now we're rushing up to 2 Swarm Queens. Okay, so real quick, I mentioned it briefly in the previous game, but it seems like Reynor's making a lot of them. These are an upgrade that you can do on the Queen. So it's 50 minerals, 0 gas to upgrade your Queen to a Swarm Queen. Long story short, regular Queens are weaker, Swarm Queens are stronger. If you upgrade a Queen to a Swarm Queen, it loses the ability to inject a hatch, but it's more powerful offensively. So I think it's really nice if you want to use like your control group of like creep spreading queens. I think upgrading them to Swarm Queen is pretty much a no-brainer. Whereas all of your other queens, the ones that are protecting the hatcheries, I think those probably should just stay in regular queen mode. And I think it's sick. Like, it makes so much sense. If you see all of this wandering around, right? As far as like insects go, which obviously Zerg is an insectoid race, at least that's the idea. It makes a lot of sense to have specialized roles. I think it's cool. I think it's cool. I have always thought that like the regular queen in StarCraft 2 is too, like, it's too strong across the board. But there's no alternative choice available for Zerg, right? So, yeah, you could nerf the queen because it's too well-rounded. But then what is the alternative play for the Zerg? There's nothing. Players have made the suggestion, maybe making the Hydralisk Den available at Hatchery Tech, which I think is a very good choice. So you can nerf the queen, right? Maybe leave the upgrades at Lair Tech or whatever. But I think I like this even better. It's effectively another unit, but yeah, it's adding to the variety that Zerg can go for in the early game. And now it's a decision that you have to make as well. If you make a macro slip up as well, if you're like a ladder hero or you're not as clean at production as these guys are, you could just simply take all your queens, make a batch of new ones, and transform all of the existing ones into Swarm Queens instead if you see your opponent moving out. I think that's fun. It's kind of like, I don't know, morphing in Archons when you notice you don't have energy yet for Storm, but your opponent is coming. I think it's kind of a cool idea. Now, maybe it's not balanced. I don't really care very much about that. But the concept is sick. All right. And that's where I think, in general, this mod is really fun. The concept. More so than the balance as it is right now, although I honestly think the balance is surprisingly good. I haven't really seen anything that's too busted. Other than, well, I think the Reaper. And then also the extra upgrade on the HP for the Hydralisk. I think that's probably too strong. Anyways. Good old Terran. Mostly untouched. I think there's not really too much more, other than, of course, the siege tank changes. Let me have... Did I just close the document? Okay, I have it back up. This Loco guy, man. Why would you close the Google Docs? That has all your points of reference. Let me just look up Marine. Yeah, nothing really changed for the Marine. It makes sense, right? Because that's like such a core unit. Very difficult to make any adjustments for it. So really the only buffs that they really have, I guess, is the siege tanks, not shredding them to pieces later on in the game. Fair enough. But yeah, this is a little bit less exciting here from ByuN's point of view. I honestly think he could have just won this game if he decided to go for Yeah, just some Reapers, a gasless triple hatch opener. I think you have absolutely no chance if that is what you're going to be... like, if ByuN would have opened up with the build that Reynor went for in the previous game, I think this would have been over. Anyhow, Reynor now taking a page out of, I guess, the Terran playbook. We have a round of, I guess we can call them missile turrets inside of the main base. I guess he doesn't have a lot of anti-air available up until this point, although the Hydras are going to be taking care of that very soon. Second factory. 2-2 has been fired up. We should see a fourth command center as well. Ah, it's already here. Makes a lot of sense. Yeah, so we're again setting up for a nice little macro match. Neither player really committing to too many all-ins. There's gotta be something that is utterly busted, by the way, in this mod. Like, I don't believe that there isn't something that's just going to be absolutely broken. So far, I haven't seen it yet. But the more people that play this mod, the more apparent the most broken things are, right? Because if there's one consistency that I've seen in all of the RTS games that I have played over the years, when something is broken, players will be abusing it until it gets nerfed. I've seen this time and time and time again in every RTS game ever, man. Most recently in Zero Space, there's this hero in Zero Space called She Who Stalks. She got giga nerfed, and I honestly think she's still overpowered. But for like, I think like a week and a half, nobody played anything but. just the way RTS players work, right? We all hate broken things. Everybody hates overpowered things, but then simultaneously, the best way to get it nerfed is for everybody to play that thing. And obviously, if you want to get wins, it may also be your only choice. But yeah, if you just play the thing and show that indeed it may be a little bit too broken, then the developers will be pretty quick to nerf it as well. It's the double standard of RTS players. We have up to 8 barracks right now and the command center count coming in. This is the Hydra HP boost that I think is too good. Vipers coming in. We have some concussive grenades here coming up yet again. I think in this instance, though, it's really only going to be for the Marauder. Lurker then coming up for Reynor too. All right. Lurkers, by the way, assuming we are going to see them, Lurkers are, in general, weaker at Hive Tech, but stronger at Lair. That's the TLDR of the Reaper. So they're a little bit stronger at Lair Tech, a little bit weaker at Hive. That's the idea. Not too impactful in this game up until this point, because Reynor's not rushing the unit out. But it creates more of like a mid-game, yeah, unit interaction here for the Zerg player rather than a late-game one. There's that upgrade again to the siege tanks for them to deal less splash damage to their friendlies. I think this is the Queen upgrade. Yeah, both of these are the Queen upgrades. Let me just actually make sure that I can get you the exact changes made to it. So there is... There's the subdermal creep follicles. That's the thing we saw in the previous game. Allows the queens to... the swarm queens, that is, to passively generate creep as it walks. And then, okay, this is just a straight armor boost for the queens. So that allows the swarm queen to gain 2 additional base armor. And I guess the idea is that this would make it like a more formidable, maybe not a late game attacking unit, but at the very least like a more mid-game focused tank. So you could go for an army based around Swarm Queen, like Swarm Queen Hydra. Would that be viable? Hydra shooting over the backs of the Swarm Queens? Maybe, I don't know. But it would be a lot of fun to see. This is the upgrade that makes the roaches 1 supply. Also pretty good. I think we'll probably mostly see that upgrade being used, not so much as a way to make more roaches, but to not feel the need to sacrifice your roaches when you've already made them prior to this section in the game. So this is the weird thing about this upgrade. We're going to see the supply count of the Zerg drop. You see that? 14 supply went down right there for Reynor because he had 14 roaches. He went from 199 to 185. I don't think there's any ability in StarCraft 2 that usually does that. I don't really know if that's a good thing either, but it's kind of fascinating to see a supply count go down without units dying. It's effectively just like a way to go beyond 200 supply, I guess. That would be the alternative. And that would be another thing that I think would be kind of fun to mess around with. What if, like, the supply limit was not 200, but what if the supply limit was 250? Would that be too much? I don't know. Would it be laggy? I think it's safe to say most of us have stronger computers than we had in 2010. Maybe it would be okay. Then again, StarCraft 2 is a single core game, so if you have a CPU that, maybe stuck in 2010, you're gonna have some tough times if indeed the supply count would get raised. But it's as far as experimentation go, I think stuff like that is really interesting. What I find less interesting is Terran's making 1 million command centers. ByuN is just making so many of them again. Not so different from the live version of the game after all. Bro's just making CCs left, right, and center. We had 1,000,001 overseers, by the way. I saw, yeah, 19 here. That's basically 1,000,001. Nidus worms as well. Roach is still protecting the bases up north. Swarm queens as well joining in. Again, a big macro game. Okay. Maybe Reynor wants to show us how you are supposed to play the Zerg late game. For now, apparently, we're really just trying to take all of these expansions, and I'm a little bit surprised that ByuN has not gone for anything a little bit more aggressive. Yeah, maybe Terran needs a little bit of love in this mod, honestly. I don't really know exactly what you could add. So Terran mech is supposed to be a lot more viable, especially against Protoss, but this is not a Protoss player he's going up against right now. Scan is obviously nice, but we're really just trying to stay alive here. At the very least, that's what he's aiming for. ByuN, by the way, not a simp. Using the regular ghost skin. Fair enough. Planetary Fortress in the upper left is going to come up. Can the Swarm Queens take that on? Fully upgraded? Ooh, what's this? Okay, we'll have to look that up in just a moment. Queens! There's a planetary right over there. What is this? Look at that icon as well. That's crazy tall. Lurkers in the meantime engaged over here though. Planetary Fortress is going to end up falling despite the mass repair. There's a secondary planetary right next to it. I don't really mind that all too much. Nidus in the meantime allowing those units to quickly transport to the upper left-hand corner. And this is a really bad sequence here for ByuN. Yes, he's going to be able to quickly retake that base, but that was very pricey. A lot of expensive units ended up going down. This is an upgrade that appears to go on forever. Ghost Academy. It's been just renamed to Academy. There's Rapid Deployment, Accelerated Training. Ah, so that is with 3.0. I wonder if that's one of them. I think that's probably the Accelerated Training. And that actually... Okay, I just mentioned that there's not a whole lot of buffs for Bio. So this used to be inside of the Fusion Core. They have moved it with the 3.0 edition, aka the most recent version of this patch. They've moved it over to the Academy instead. So I believe it's a straight up... Assuming that is what it is. Accelerated Training. It's a straight up production speed boost for the barracks units. Yeah. That also explains the symbol. It's a little clock with little hotkeys and cues on it. It's actually kind of nice. So it accelerates training of all units from a barracks with a tech lab by 30%. So I guess that allows you to stay at like 8 barracks for basically perpetuity, right? You can basically stay there for a really long time. This upgrade, by the way, makes it so that your structures don't burn down. You can actually heal them up. It's also in multiplayer, or it's also in co-op and then in the campaigns of StarCraft 2. So a lot of these things are actually taken straight from StarCraft as it is. Some of the things are new, but a lot of these things I think are familiar as well to people that have played the campaigns and that maybe have also played or are still playing a little bit of co-op. By the way, that expansion that was previously a Terran base, now being gobbled up by the Zerg. Yeah, there's an upgrade in co-op and then also in multiplayer, or sorry, in single player called a Rupture. And it increases the damage of Banelings by like 200%. It's crazy overpowered. When I first saw this symbol in the previous game, I thought for a second that that is what it is, but it's apparently not. So that reduces the Baneling morph time by 50%. The idea being that you can swarm the map with Hydra Ling and then into Banelings far easier. So if you have a parade push going as the Zerg, not a bad choice. Ooh, big EMP actually on all the Overseers. ByuN still has a lot of money, by the way, but he needs to be careful that he is not going to get out-macroed here in the long run. This is one of the problems you do run into as a Terran from time to time, where you think you're rich, but then it turns out your opponent is even richer than you are. Man, I love that siege tank animation. It's really cool. More siege tank upgrades. I believe that's the Swarmhouse one, by the way. Is that the Swarmhouse upgrade? Yeah, so catalyzed morphogenesis. I mean, it sounds like a StarCraft upgrade. Claude, give me 20 StarCraft 2 upgrade names for my custom mod. Catalyzed morphogenesis. Yeah, dude, it's a swarm host switch. It's a swarm host switch. So this upgrade allows the swarm host locust to attack air while the unit is engaged with air units. Is there any other change to the swarm host? Let me have a quick little peek. Swarm host. No. Really? Really? Is that it? Is it just the upgrade in the infestation pit? No, there is more. Ah, they wrote the unit as one word. It's actually 2 words. It's swarm host, if I'm not mistaken. Am I losing my mind? Isn't it called swarm and then host? Yeah, it's 2 words. Okay. I Ctrl F the document with 2 words, but... so, yeah, it's... Oh, it's actually gotten more expensive, but less supply. So that's interesting. It's 100 minerals, 100 gas, and from 3 to 2 supply. And then the pressurized glance upgrade, aka the one that we just saw, if I'm not mistaken, allows the locust to attack air units while flying. So it tended to make the swarm hosts harder to mass early due to their cost, but more supply effective to allow for more swarm hosts to be mixed into mid-game and late-game armies without eating up too much supply. The anti-air upgrade allows locusts to deal with air units while flying without making it a counter to everything. Cool idea. I don't know if it's too busted. It might be too good, but it's a cool idea. Ooh, tactical nukes. Tactical nukes. Let's see what the small little nuke is like. Yeah, maybe the landing time is still a little long, man. Big EMP on all of the overseers yet again. Here's the swarmos coming through. I wonder how good swarm hosts are at 2 supply. Honestly, I think 2 supply swarm hosts, maybe too much. Like, I think that's probably too good. Because the only reason they're somewhat balanced in the current version of StarCraft is because they're 3 supply. 2 supply sounds kind of busted. But then again, I guess in the live version of StarCraft, they made Ghost 2 supply again too, so who knows. I mean, if you can get away with that and everything seems to be okay, maybe... maybe we can get away with anything. Man, that's a lot of swarm hosts, though. There's gonna be 26 swarm hosts. Oh, man. More tactical nukes coming up. So nukes, half the price, half the strength. Effectively, I think what it can be summarized as. So more, yeah, more utility rather than one hit, one shot, one army blasted apart. I mean, you could still do that, but a little bit more difficult to pull off. Man, Reynor is just tearing through all of this. By the way, a lot of the changes, like for example, the pressurized glance in this particular document also highlight that it's giving credit to Reynor for the idea. And I know Reynor also, I believe at the very least, he has his, I'm not familiar with it personally, but I believe he also has his own balance mod. So it seems like the Patches mod is the one that's like risen to the top and the one that everybody's currently training on, that everybody is trying to practice a little bit on, but it is an accumulation of a bunch of people that have made their own mods as well. So it's not just like one person, it's not just Patches working at this mod. It's a group of people that are excited about it, listening to feedback, making adjustments based on what they have been liking themselves. I think in general, having one person hold all the cards as far as balance goes is a very risky thing to do, because before you know it, you're gonna be a fan of StarCraft, and now you're also gonna get bullied like David Kim got bullied for about a decade in StarCraft 2. Now, David Kim was a Blizzard employee, and he didn't care at all. At the very least, I don't think he did. But basically, anytime somebody lost, they would immediately blame David Kim. I don't think you want to do that to yourself if you're a fan of StarCraft, you know? Because you are basically signing up. By calling this the PatchesSC Versus Mod, you are basically signing yourself up to get bullied by the community if this does indeed make it big. Dude, the locusts are just, there's so many of them. I would like to see it attack a, oh, a Medivac. A Medivac. Can it attack a Medivac? Oh, it attacked a Medivac. That's so weird. It's attacking Medivacs. Ah. I don't know if you have to manually target it or what. It didn't seem to be doing it on a tech move. They're also losing HP, actually, really quickly. Oh, it's different. Oh, the locus of the swarm host is different. No, the unit has been changed more than just the swarm host itself. Woo. Reynor, by the way, is starting to tear the Terran player apart, it seems. Okay. So the swarm host has been adjusted. So it's more expensive, but 2 supply. But then the locust also has been adjusted. So it no longer has timed life. Its HP has been increased from 50 to 60, but now it loses HP over time. If it does not take any damage, it lasts for 21 seconds. That's so much better. That's so much better than a progress bar. So basically, by the time it's firing, it's gonna be at like half HP. Still plenty good, though, to take down a planetary fortress just like that. Or maybe even an orbital. What the hell, dude? These units are crazy. Yeah, Locust DPS is nuts. I wouldn't be surprised if that needs some additional adjustments, but it's also definitely one of those niche units that players are only just now really starting to grasp the surface of. It's not really the unit you're going to be rushing out early on in a new patch like this. But it sounds broken, honestly. A little too early to say. I don't want to jump to conclusions, but it sounds way too good. Oh, hey. No detection available, lads. I'm sorry. Big EMP on all of the overseers yet again. Now, Reynor appears to be winning all the fights. The problem is also here for ByuN that he is running out of cash much quicker than Reynor will. So this game is by no means over. But the trajectory here implies that what ByuN is doing is not going to work out in the long run. I think he's going to be in a lot of trouble here very soon. It's weird because he still has like, well, 9,000 resources available to him. But Zerg has now taken about half the map and then some. Meaning that there's just not that many resources available anymore for the Terran to be even accumulating here. He's, in a weird way, also contained because of all the swarm hosts just flying locusts left, right, and center. And anytime these units fire... Oh my god, they're dealing a command... Oh my god, he killed a command center in the air. That's so weird. Those locusts were clumped up together. I didn't even realize how many there were. Zerglings, in the meantime, together with Hydras and Banes breaking through. Yeah, I think ByuN is kind of dead. Reynor showing us how Terran is meant to be played in the previous game we watched. But in this game, I think he's making it pretty clear that Zerg, let's just say, is very formidable. And when I say formidable, I mean overpowered. I do believe that Zerg is probably a little bit too good. Maybe I've been watching too many Reynor games in this mod so far. Obviously, Reynor is just a phenomenal player, but this, just across the board, I'm not really sure what Terran is really supposed to do against this, you know? It just seems a little bit oppressive. ByuN is going to go for a little bit of an attack. Normally, when you go up against a swarm host-based army, there's just not enough army available for the Zerg to fight you with at the same time. But now we have 16 swarm hosts, which is really good for harassment, while simultaneously a lot more army on the ground too, because the swarm hosts are 2 supply each. The roaches are 1 supply. Do we still have any of those? Nah, not quite. He doesn't even really need these swarm hosts for base defense, I don't think. Maybe they're better than ever now. It's base defense, actually, now that I think about it. You could even have them snipe medevac drops. A lot of siege tanks set up right over there. Can he kill the orbital command? Nah, not gonna happen. Oh, well, actually, maybe lifting it off is a mistake. Reynor landing about half of the locust, purposefully not landing the other half to kill the orbital. Yeah, that's crazy. I don't think that was the intention when they made that change. That is... Yeah, that's a little bit too good. I think Swarm Hosts, like, Swarm Hosts are such a funny unit. Like, they're always a little bit undertuned for, like, the last 6 years of StarCraft 2. But then if you change anything, as we see some huge blinding clouds, if you make any progress to make them stronger, I think they turn out to be busted really fast. That was cool, though. Okay, let's see. Is there anything ByuN can still do? Or are we just witnessing this Terran player die? Admittedly, though, ByuN effectively went for the strategy you go for in the live version of StarCraft, whereas Reynor went for the strategy that you can go for on this mod, right? So Reynor leaning into the strength of the mod, whereas ByuN is playing just a regular StarCraft 2 with a million command centers. Maybe we need to have a look at somebody like Clem. Clem is usually a little bit quicker when it comes to, yeah, adjusting to a patch like this, and he's a little bit more flexible, I suppose. ByuN here is doing the old man thing, where we're not really changing anything because we are doing the way that things have always been done, right? Like, it's fine, but I don't believe that this is how you're supposed to be playing Terran here, but I also don't really know exactly how you are supposed to be playing Terran. But anyways, I just think that the default approach is probably not the best one. Yeah, Reynor is swarming all over the map. We're making 2 command centers. Why in the world are we making 2 command centers? Like, seriously. This is kind of brain dead, no? Like, what is this? Why are we making... That's like the rudest thing I've ever said in a game of StarCraft. Anyways, this is so dumb. This makes no sense. We're under all this pressure. We're pretty much forced to tap out and we queue up 2 command centers. This is what happens, man, when you give Terrans command centers at 300 minerals. This is their weighted security blanket. When stressed out, take a little nap underneath your blanket. The command center addiction is real. Siege tanks still maximizing their damage to their own structures. Game number 1 in this best of 3 goes in favor of Reynor. Okay, Sanctuary 3. Game number 2 in this best of 3 series. Let's see. I would like to see a little bit of cheese. That's really the main thing that I am missing a little bit so far. Maybe I'm not looking at the right players. I know that, for example, Lorimbo has been playing this mod as well. Maybe, like, Lorimbo's average game duration is like 4 minutes, I'm pretty sure. Okay, maybe slight exaggeration there, but there's got to be some viable cheeses too, right? Seems like the top level players are not really too keen on that so far. I do want cheese to be a common viable thing at the highest level, honestly. It's like a... Look, this is like almost like a personal indulgence, right? But there's something really cool about pro gamers getting rushed. At the same time, it absolutely sucks to play against. I'm not really sure what the best way to deal with that sort of thing is, but seeing high-ranking players cannon rush, do dirty 2-base all-ins, all that sort of aggression, I think it's fun. Now, I'm not really sure exactly how you balance it for, you know, lower-level players too. Because honestly, if you are a ladder hero in the live version of StarCraft, you can cannon rush your way to grandmaster. Even though it may not be viable at the pro level, it's still extremely good. It's one of those builds that is far easier to execute than it is to defend. And I wonder if it's possible to maybe create like a common ground there where it's equally difficult to execute as it is to defend. I don't know. Can you increase the difficulty on a cheese? And then make it stronger at the same time? Would that be possible? I'm not really sure. But I'm just, you know, talking out loud here, right? I'm just trying to give my 2 cents. I think that would be fun if we had more introduction of early game aggression too. So let's see. Reapers for ByuN. Reapers for ByuN. Reynor asked in the previous game if he could please not go Reapers. Apparently this time around, we are. Drone kill. Not too bad. Lucky here, though. Yeah, for the Terran, it's again a... Well, actually, no, never mind. This is not a gasless triple hedge build, my bad. This is different than the game that we played just now, where Reynor ended up going triple hedge before gas. This is metabolic boost reasonably early on. Still think that this third base is in a bit of trouble. Now, is ByuN gonna be going for the formal current version of the Reaper opener, or are we gonna try and make any adjustments? No, this is the official version of the build, right? This is not going to be the one where we go 5 Reapers and then into the upgrades, or Mass Reaper into the Reaper boosts. This is the very, yeah, commonly seen version of the 2-Rex opener. Metabolic boost just a few seconds off. Queen's obviously not as strong. Okay. Yeah, I think ByuN could have done more damage there if he decided to go for a little bit more commitment. So let me actually look up exactly what has changed to the Queen. So first off, the Queens have a rally point from the hatchery. That's pretty interesting. By the way, will these Queens spawn with full HP? Normally units that are damaged do spawn at full HP. Yeah. Swarm Queen over here is full HP. Interesting. So Queens from 175 minerals back down to 150. Armor from 1 to 0. Ground damage from 4 times 2 to 5. Anti-air range damage from 9 to 10. Speed on creep is slightly increased, and transfuse can be used again off creep. Okay. So, long story short, it is a little bit cheaper, but also less tanky. It's got more anti-air range, but it's weaker across the board. It's also a little bit quicker. Did I already say that? I think I said that twice. That seems reasonable to me. So you have to make the decision to spend more money to then make a Swarm Queen. It's a cool unit, isn't it? I don't know. There's something about it. It almost looks like a Zerg hero unit in a way. Like, this looks like Zagara, I guess. It's like a mothership, but then for the Zerg. Looks like Reynor wants to go into really quick Bing links this time around. Curious to see if ByuN is really going to make any adjustments. Nah, I think ByuN really is just taking... So this is the typical thing that we see quite a bit at the pro level. He's just playing the style that he plays on the ladder, and he doesn't really make any adjustments until he like, I guess, figures something out by accident, or if he loses to something that's really strong, he may incorporate it into his own game, or if he sees somebody else play it. But ByuN's mindset going into these games is just to play his normal approach and not really make any of the updates other than the ones that are low-hanging fruits. Like, for example, those late-game siege tank ones, right? The ones that don't really require any strategic adjustment. You just gotta research them and then they're better, right? The siege tanks are gonna be better. You take less friendly fire. But we're not really seeing any fundamental adjustments here from ByuN for strategies that he would not have gone for in the past. Ooh, here's why those queens are pretty scary, eh? Yeah, they also look more menacing. Those big queens, man. There's suddenly just a bunch of these swarm queens in your face. So the swarm queen, by the way, has less range for air. So it deals more damage to air, if I'm not mistaken, but it has far less range, which is pretty interesting. So I guess it's meant to not be able to, like, snipe medevacs from half a screen away, like you could normally do with regular queens. Interpreting the numbers, I may not actually be correct on that. Maybe it does deal less damage. It's a little hard to say. But it's not specialized for air. Because of the attack speed, it's a little bit hard to say. Ooh, queens transfusing one another. Keep in mind, they can transfuse off creep. Still, though, the swarm queens will pop. ByuN is going to have to get on out of there. Not a bad push, though, here for the Terran across the board. Not really losing all too much. We got ourselves a second factory. We'll probably see a fourth command center. We could even go for an 8-Rex. I wouldn't mind the idea of an 8-Rex. 8-Rex together with an academy? Nah, not an idea for now, I guess. We're not going to go for the rapid deployment too early on. We're just going to go into the good old drilling claws. Drilling claws, though, researching over here in the armory. That's a little bit funky. Is there anything else changed? Drilling claws. Drilling claws moved from the tech lab to the armory. Also more expensive. From 75 to 100. Burrowing a Widowmine no longer sends the under attack alert to nearby enemies. And there's also a Widowmine upgrade called Shredder Missile. Upgrades the Widowmine missile to reduce impacted units' armor by 2 for 5 seconds. Okay. So you can burrow Widowmines, and then the Widowmine missile also on units that they don't insta-kill are kind of like a little baby anti-armor missile from the Raven? Interesting. Will ByuN get it? I mean, he should. Has he read any of the patch notes? Probably not. If I were to make a guess, judging by what he's been doing so far, I don't think he has. He probably doesn't know of the Google Docs. Anyways. Ugh. Actually, I think the Google Docs is only in English. I wonder how big of a deal that is. Most of the Koreans do speak quite good English, but obviously being able to understand the language and then being able to, like, interpret data simultaneously while, you know, it's a little different. In the meantime, though, the drops over here are working out quite well. More queens will be dying. There we have the upgrade coming in again for the banelings. It cuts the baneling morph time in half and increases their life regen. Maybe there is a Korean version of the patch notes, actually. I think there should be. It's not very difficult, right? Getting it translated shouldn't be super complex. I just haven't seen it, but that doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Ah, there should be. There should be. Can I find it, actually? Korean? Oh, there is a Korean translation. Never mind. It's literally at the absolute top of the document. Sick. Huge Zergling counterattack. Ooh, there's the Widow Mines. Man. Those Widow Mines put in a lot of damage. Planetary Fortress is not going to finish up. Are we going to cancel it? Nope. Planetary is going to go down. In the meantime, a hatchery in some trouble as well, but the main army of Terran also taking a beating. Hatchery indeed in the upper left will fall. Lurker Den coming up right now for Reynor. Reynor keeps making Lurker Dens when he's already at Hive. Am I missing something? Lurker Den. No, you can make it earlier on. Should be able to make it at Hatchery Tech. Or at Lair Tech, rather. I guess he's just busy doing other things. But he keeps not making a Lurker Den until he's at Hive, which is a little bit curious. New command center coming up over here. Honestly, a pretty big mistake right there from ByuN. Same over here. It looks like he just got a lot of units blasted while idling with the Medivacs. Empty Medivacs returning home. Not lifting off the command center when you could just cancel the planetary fortress still and then lift it up in the air against Zerglings is pretty wild. Like, that is a pretty tremendous oversight. And it's the type of thing that is going to claw Reynor back into this game very comfortably. This is the HP boost over here for Hydralisks. Lurkers coming up. Yet again. And this time around it's going to be quite difficult to counter them because you ideally do still want to have some sort of ghost, right? Or ghost or... Oh, I do appreciate this, you know, building all your structures in a line like that. Yeah, that's nice. That is getting the Loco seal of approval. We have an extra space over here, but you know what? That's fine. Maybe another one over here too. Doesn't really matter. Anyhow, we don't have the money here to go into ghosts or liberators. It's very tricky for Terran to counter those lurkers, I believe at the very least. Obviously, the lurker is different, but it's very difficult for Terrans to counter those without those upgrades later on. Lurkers are going to be getting seismic spines. That's the ranged research. So the lurker speed has been increased, but the burrow speed has been reduced. Seismic spines or research time has been increased by like a 20 seconds. And adaptive talents is gone. It also has reduced spine movement speed by 20%, meaning that the attack spines are slower. Meaning that I guess you can dodge it a little bit easier with Marine Marauder Medevac. Well, you don't have to ask ByuN to do that twice. ByuN loves, even in the live version of StarCraft, never going ghosts and just dancing with lurkers. I guess the idea is that these spines are a little bit more dodgeable right now, right? Similar to how they are dodgeable in StarCraft 1. Or you can just run into them. Why dodge them when you can just run into them single file instead? Widow Mines over here putting in a lot of work. Command Center gone over on that side. Command Center over here at the very least retreating. Reynor's got 91 drones versus 58 SCVs, and while he's been having a very difficult time getting this base in the upper left-hand corner up, another... Ooh, wow. Pretty big mistake here from the Terran. Maybe he can still get the base kill, but... Yeah, Reynor is playing some really stellar StarCraft today. ByuN appears to be struggling. I really liked... This is a bit weird to say, I guess, but I like the way that Reynor was playing Terran better than the way that ByuN is playing Terran here. Because at the very least, we had that shenanigans, especially in the early game, right? Where we are testing out some of the changes. ByuN has got... Well, he just got the concussive shells researched, and it has a different icon. It now also benefits Reapers, but ByuN not really bothering with anything else. Didn't even get the extra upgrade on the Widow Mines that makes them function like a little anti-armor missile. Yeah, and I think ultimately that's going to cost them, because this Zerg army is stronger than it normally would be. The Hydras, for example, have more health, whereas this Terran army is identical to where it always is. Zerg cannot quite break through, though. Reynor's trying. Are we gonna stim in? Oh, my lord! Ooh, I guess the travel speed, actually, on those spines... Oh, that went way better for Terran than I thought it would. Huh! That's the biggest display on nerfed lurkers so far. Yeah, the travel time of those spines being slower, actually, also, I guess, in those instances, reduces the damage dealt. I actually, in my mind's eye, I could already see the entire bio army disappear. New command center flies on over to the right side of the map. Medevac drop over here, putting in some damage too. Reynor again harassing, though, from the back. And this is a more mature approach across the board here from the Zerg player too, right? We're not really trying to go and mass one unit so much. We're not making crazy switches to swarm hosts. This is Hydra Lurker with Ling Bane support. And it seems to be working out just fine. Ooh, fungal growth coming out of nowhere. Is there enough for the Zerg player to just break through all of this right here? I think there might just be. Those units don't have a lot of room to run in anymore. And well, yeah, these lurkers do seem to be quite a bit worse. The Marauders actually alone are doing okay. Reynor has got so much more income for such a long time that it's pretty much impossible for ByuN to fight his way back into the game. I honestly don't know if these lurkers are even worth it. I think in this instance, lurkers may not be worth it. I guess they're still nice, though, for just sort of harassing and forcing the Terran player on their toes. But ultimately, that will wrap up this particular series. It is Reynor who first ended up winning with Terran against Zerg, and then he ended up beating ByuN 2 times with Zerg. A little bit confusing, but really fun to see that, yeah, there's so much strategic variety. What do you think? Are swarm hosts broken in this mod? I think they probably are. Yeah, I think they're probably a little bit too good, but that was entertaining. Same for the Reaper. I wonder if the Reaper is a little bit too strong. Then again, though, I do think it's important to not just swing the nerf hammer at, like, the absolute first instant, right? I think it's very nice to just sort of let it sit for a while and see whether or not something is actually busted.